Joining us now, Sheriff David Clarke, Sheriff, America's Sheriff, live in Chicago. Hey, Sheriff, great to have you with us, sir.
How you doing, John? Good morning,
Sheriff,
to your listeners.
Sheriff, 19 days. What? I mean, look, I want to start with these Joe Biden revelations in the New York Post. First, of course, Twitter and Facebook wouldn't put any of the stories out there because they said it was not verified, so we have to deal with that. But now, apparently, they came from Hunter Biden's computer, and apparently meetings were set up, and apparently Joe Biden, there's now evidence that he said that he was going to cut in the big guy for 10%. Who's the big guy? What do you think?
Well, you know the big guy is. The big guy at the time was his dad. And you know, it just reminds me of former President Obama telling the American people that there wasn't a smidgen of corruption in his administration. That's laughable. You know, this whole thing is dirty. But again, it's one of these situations that I don't think it's going to move the needle moving toward November 3rd because this kind of stuff coming out of Washington, it doesn't really get any traction. It'll be good for some news stories and accusations, but Hunter Biden, like Mrs. Bill Clinton, will never see the inside of a courtroom over this.
What do you think? What impact is it going to have? Well, look, two things. Number one, nothing ever happens to the Democrats ever. So there'll be no Barr indictments. There'll be no Durham. There'll be somebody who'll get a slap on the hand, and they'll find somebody 8 levels down that they'll fine because you didn't dot an I, right? You and I predicted that months ago. But this Biden thing, 19 days to go, I mean, is this kind of an October surprise, Sheriff? Is it going to have an impact?
Zero impact. Because this stuff, like I said, John, it doesn't get any traction. It's tabloid stuff. There's obviously some skullduggery going on here with Hunter Biden, and then in the end, you know, Trump gets impeached over it. But other than politicals, this story will come and go. It's not going to move the needle. Anybody who's voting for Biden will not, after learning what happened yesterday, will not wake up today and say, oh, I can't vote for Biden now, not after knowing this. And I don't think it's going to have any long-ranging impact. I think, you know, what's really sad here is that if Joe Biden wins the presidency, of course, all this stuff will get squashed and it'll go away. So, you know, again, it's more Washington theater. These people are protected. The people who are on the inside of the swamp in Washington are protected from stuff like this. People on the outside, people, you know, the little guys, people like Scooter Libby, you know, and others, you know, they're the ones, people like Roger Stone, people like, trying to think of the other guy that was recently indicted.
Manafort.
You know, they get hard time. And, you know, the rest of us down here, we would pay dearly for this. But the elite in Washington, D.C., especially if you're a Democrat, you know, this just comes and goes. It's really sickening to me, though.
John Fredericks Radio Network, live in Greenville, North Carolina. The sun finally came up here. It looks like a beautiful day. The president will be here 1 o'clock for a rally. He's now doing what he did in 2016, going to the smaller rural communities in key swing states to get out his base. Look, I want to get your opinion on something, Sheriff Clarke. Steve Bannon, mutual friend of ours, on my show a couple times a week. I carry him. I syndicated him. I have tremendous respect for his political acumen. Of course, he was there, was the chairman of the campaign in 2016, I believe, steered it to victory, amongst others. He doesn't think the president should have these rallies. He says that they're counterproductive. The media portrays them as super spreaders, that the people that are waiting in line should be making phone calls or knocking on doors, and it's counterproductive, and he should simply have his surrogates do it like me and then just stream in by video. What do you think about that?
You know, I don't disagree with Steve Bannon on much. I agree with you. His political acumen is off the charts. He's one of the brightest political analysts that I know, but I disagree with him here. Look, I agree with the president. At some point, we have to steer this coronavirus down. If you look at the fatality rates, it's about 1%, and you know, and it's really confined the fatality rates to the elderly with pre-existing conditions. If you have a compromised immune system, of course, this is very dangerous. But those people shouldn't be standing in line and in crowds anyway. I think people can make these decisions for themselves. If 98% of the people who get the coronavirus end up recovering, what the hell are we afraid of, for heaven's sakes? We have to stop being afraid of this thing. They're working on a vaccine. There's some precautions that I take. Okay, I'm not reckless in this. I've washed my hands more than I ever have. And because mask wearing is mandatory now, most of the time when I'm out, I have a mask on. But that's a decision that adults can make. Many people end up having coronavirus and never even know it. They're asymptomatic. So that's why I said I disagree with this. If I trust people to make wise decisions for themselves. If people want to go to these rallies, they want to stand in line, they don't want to wear the mask, that's a decision they can make. I don't want government making that decision for them. Government makes enough decisions for people that they shouldn't. You take some things that are not good for your health, for instance. You take smoking, for heaven's sakes, but they don't ban cigarettes. Okay, you take the heart disease. They don't ban things that lead to heart disease. You put the studies out there, you put the warnings out there, you put the advice out there, and damn it, trust that people can make these decisions for themselves.
John Fredericks Radio Network with America's Sheriff David Clarke. If you want to weigh in and get involved, you can join the conversation with the sheriff, 888-480-JOHN. We'll get you right in. 888-480-5646. You can also text us at 757-692-1710, 757-692-1710. Sean in Newport News says, good morning, Sheriff. I'm tired of people saying Hunter Biden didn't have enough experience to work for an energy company. Do you have any idea how much energy is in crack cocaine? Sean in Newport News.
That's a good one.
Okay, guy. That's pretty funny. Okay, Sheriff. So I agree with you. I think these rallies are critical. And I love the fact that the president's out doing 2 or 3 a day. I love the fact that he's staring the virus down. So I don't agree with Steve either. But Steve and I have been at odds on this virus since it started. And, we carry, of course, War Room Pandemic. We syndicated that for him on the radio. But, Steve was I remember he first wanted a national 45-day lockdown to smash the curve, right? Remember that? That would have been a disaster. So you and I are in agreement. I think the president should continue with the rallies, continue with the surrogate rallies. That's how we motivate our base. Now, looking at some of the fake polls that are out there driving a false narrative, in talking to people in your network, what are you sensing now, Sheriff?
Well, the pollsters, the big thing with polls, I'm familiar with polls because running for sheriff.
Sure.
I paid for some polls, and I know how they work. You have to understand the methodology. You have to know, for instance, what percentage of, Democrats versus what percentage of Republicans. And what I'm finding, what I'm hearing, the methodology used, they'll survey like 38% Democrat and, 25% Republican. I don't think that's reflective of the American people right now. Most people don't belong to a political party. They vote a certain way, but they don't belong to a party. A lot of these national polls, first of all, we don't have a national election. So the national polls are irrelevant. They're useless. We have a state by state. And so you have to look at the battleground states. You're in one of them now, North Carolina, Virginia, Florida, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. You have to look at states like that inside the state to find out what's really going on, and to poll registered voters is useless. You have to poll likely voters. So I guess my point is, excuse me, that you have to know the methodology, and most of these pollsters will not put out the methodology used. They'll just give a error rate of plus or minus 4%. So unless you know the methodology, the breakdown of the entire poll, it's really hard to say. But I want your listeners to keep in mind, we don't have a national election in this country for president. We have a state by state. And so battleground states, what's going to make the difference in this election. It doesn't matter that people get out to vote in California. The president's probably not going to win California, probably not going to win New York. So if they increase their voter turnout in California, it's not going to mean a damn thing.
It's irrelevant, right? I mean,
correct.
That's why. Look, I mean, Biden could win this. Well, what did Clinton won the popular vote by 3% last time? Biden could win it by 4% and still lose, or 5%, because they're going to run up big numbers in L.A. County, in New York, in Massachusetts. Oh, by the way, Massachusetts Republican governor today. Here's a shocker. Are you hanging on to your seat? I mean, this could be the game changer of all time. Massachusetts Republican Governor Charlie, whatever his name is, says he's not supporting Trump. Is that the end of the campaign? Should we just concede now to Biden?
Look, there's no such thing as a conservative from Massachusetts. I know you said Republican, but there's a difference between a Republican and a conservative anyway. If you get elected in Massachusetts as a Republican, you're really what you are is you are a strong Democrat. That's what you are. That's what's considered a Republican.
These
not a
never
liberal.
Trumpers are unbelievable. Like, breaking news, like Charlie Baker's not supporting the president. It's like, what the hell do I care what Charlie Baker does, right? The guy's a complete never-Trumper loser, and I could care less. And all these other people, they're not supporting Trump. They didn't support him the first time. All they want is him to lose so they can take their party back and get open borders, go back to Wall Street, get the gangster banksters giving them money again, ship our job to China, get slave labor, fire up the wars, make money off the defense contractors. I mean, that's the party, Sheriff, they want back. Sheriff Amy Coney Barrett, I know you've been watching these hearings. What do you think of her performance so far, sir?
Brilliant. She came onto the radar screen, mine anyway, in the, Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh. She was a finalist for both of those, so I started looking her up after that, and I was very impressed. One of the things that I like about her coming onto the court is that the high court has so many Ivy Leaguers on there, so you only have one real way of thinking, and it's elitist. You know who's complained about this? Clarence Thomas. He said, we have too many Ivy Leaguers on this thing, and it doesn't lend itself then, for a diverse view across the United States. So the fact that she came from Notre Dame Law, I think she'll add some diversity. But I'll tell you what, I'm tired of these nitwits. Amy Coney Barrett has forgotten more about the law than anybody on that panel, Senate Judiciary, Republican or Democrat. But I'm tired of these Democrats slapping our women around and getting away with it. What do I mean by our women? I'm talking about women who stand for traditional values, faith, family, and freedom. They slap them around, they kick them around. I think any woman who's watching these hearings that isn't repulsed by the way that she's been treated is a phony, okay? And from those people, I do not want to hear any more about women's rights and women equality when they watch this stuff and these clowns like Durbin and even some of the women on there, Klobuchar and Feinstein, slapping this woman around, treating her with no respect, and getting away with it. So, she's going to be confirmed. That's good. She's got a lot more patience than I would have, to subject myself to that nonsense, that total disrespect of a human being, and they're allowed to get away with it. So she'll get beyond this. She will be confirmed. She'll be the next justice on the Supreme Court, and that's a good thing for America.
John Fredericks Radio Network.